July 26, 2023 business meeting of the Richmond Community Schools Board of Trustees. If you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the reading of our mission and vision statements.
Mission statement: Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Vision statement: Richmond Community Schools, a collaborative, community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you, Mr. Zaleski. Thank you, Mr. Pops. Let the record show also we only have 6 members in attendance tonight, so votes will be based on 6 votes. All right, next up is celebrations.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I'm going to ask that our distinguished guest, the Honorable Jeff Roberts, and our Administrator of the Year, Mrs. Jennifer Service, approach the podium together for tonight's celebratory honors. Welcome, Senator Roberts, Mrs. Service. Sincerely appreciate you all being here. And I believe, Senator Roberts, you have a special gift and acknowledgement for Mrs. Service.
Thank you, Superintendent Wright, and for all of you board members and those of you, your other staff here today, and public. Certainly recognize the hard work that happens in this community as Richmond Community Schools, and certainly this is probably the first time that I've been in here to bring a certificate like this. But I watched the paper, and I know Jennifer slightly, and her husband as well, but recognize the hard work that's done, and know that the opportunity to be looked at favorably as Administrator of the Year is a fairly big deal, because this is a big school district, and so it's not like there's 2 buildings and 400 students. You have a lot of staff, and so I want to recognize Jennifer from the State Senate, and that's this today is a certificate. And so I said to her a moment ago that knowing that when you do work from here and teach children, students to become citizenry of the community and participate in the economic cycle, you have to put your heart into it. And I believe that's part of what Jennifer does, put her heart in everything she does. And so this simply says, from the state of Indiana, hereby proclaims that Jennifer Service is commemorated upon being selected as Administrator of the Year here at Richmond Community Schools. And myself, as a member of the Indiana General Assembly, I want to acknowledge Richmond Community Schools on the joyous occasion of having Jennifer Service be selected as Administrator of the Year, and best wishes for your continued service. And so that's what this is. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. No, I'm good, thank you.
Actually, Senator Roberts, we appreciate your presence, so no, we ask if you don't mind. If you don't mind, Senator Roberts, share with us, and for those that may not know, as an educator yourself, and as a former administrator yourself, you alluded to the challenges that we all are faced with within our profession, and trying to always improve upon our craft to serve students. Can you share, again, how joyous of not only this moment, but all moments throughout the state that you've taken to really put forth such acknowledgement to our
Sure. And so, as I mentioned, this is the first one that I've given here for Administrator of the Year. Obviously, there are Teachers of the Year as well. I think probably in every school district that I haven't. I missed that one this time, but recognize the hard work that happens. And I know, there's a lot of tension, a lot of things that happen. Sometimes the inputs are difficult, and that's the work being done at the elementary level helps prepare them the best as they move up the system. And so I recognize the hard work that's done, not only in Richmond Community School, but obviously across the state. I'm grateful as well to the board members. I know the things that you all have to do, the decisions you have to make are not always that easy, and but you continue to trudge forward to get things done. So it's recognized, certainly. I think until you maybe get in the midst of the battle and the things that we have to deal with there, and the communication that happens, it's not hard to recognize the effort that's put forth to make sure that what happens is the very best you can do, and continually improving. And without good staff to take care of things at every level, it doesn't happen. So, thank you all.
And to to Senator Roth's statement, and for the record, we also will be awarding Mrs. Linda Morganson last year's Teacher of the Year with an acknowledgement and recognition. Unfortunately, Mrs. Morganson couldn't be with us this evening, but I know that Senator Roth found it necessary and appropriate. And we definitely appreciate your presence and appreciate the acknowledgement. Mrs. Service, what's this mean to you? Is this such a first? And as we typically do, we're going to ask who you brought with you.
Well, with me I have my husband Lee and then my mom Brenda.
And so share with us, Mrs. Service, what does such an acknowledgement from such a honorable senator mean?
I started here in 2001 as a teacher with 4th grade, and then taught that for 4 years, and then I taught kindergarten for 8 years, and then I taught 3rd grade for a couple years, and then I became an instructional coach for about 7 years, and then here I am as a principal. So just learning throughout the years and growing as an educator, and went from helping students as a teacher and then helping teachers and then helping teachers and students now in this role. It's a goal that I had, and it's just awesome to be helping Richmond Community Schools students to be successful.
And then one of the things you mentioned, and I know she could not be with us, but if Mrs. Morganson were here, I safely assume that she would say, as she has always said, and you just alluded to it, that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And of your service and of what Senator Roth alluded to, it's a collective. And of the folks that you have surrounded yourself with, and of your self-service, again, we commend you. Board, questions, comments, statements, feedback?
I just want to say, I think that I met Jennifer her first year, or my first year at Sierra Richardson, and then this last year got to see her in action at Fairview as administrator, and the hard work she puts in, and the heart, as Senator Roth mentioned. If I remember correctly, at the work session last summer, or maybe it wasn't last summer, in the fall, but you brought teachers for NIET, and you teared up because you care. You put your heart into it. You care about your staff. You care about the progress that students are making, and it shows. Thank you.
Others, questions?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to board reports. Did the Educational Planning Working Group meet? Okay. We did not meet as Buildings and Grounds. The Finance Working Group, did they meet?
No.
No? Marketing Group? How you
We did meet as a marketing group during our last meeting. Discussed as to how we are going to continue with some of the campaigns from last year, just continue to improve upon what we've done. We also looked at statistics, and I don't want to steal any of our thunder from Mrs. Hazelbaker, but of the statistics regarding social media and engagement with our community in particular areas such as Mrs. Hazelbaker may correct me, but I believe we've had more visits and hits to our Twitter site and
X.
I'm sorry. You tell it, Tuesday technology. I don't want to say Instagram, but I believe
Market.
I was gonna say, AOL was coming shortly, but Ms. Hazelbaker, if you could just share with us, some of those
Some
highlights.
things that we discussed at our marketing working group this past month. We had K-Boost, the EES is actually coming, has actually come to our district to do some video shots for some promoting of our district. So that's gone very well. And we also have moved forward with that Attendance Matters in Wayne County, partnering with the other 4 school corporations, billboards, radio, social media videos, all that. That's been going well too. And then also Meridian Health Services is something we'll also be highlighting. We're created a video to highlight the new clinic at the high school at door 38, and they'll be also having an open house with the ribbon cutting with the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce. So those are just a couple of things that the marketing working group has worked on.
Thank you, Mrs. Hazelbaker.
All right, any other discussion? Okay. Next up is public commentary.
We have no one signed up.
Okay, that makes it easy. All right, next is highlights and happening. Dr. Wright?
Vice President Ward and trustees, I come before you this evening just to report that after yesterday's very successful corporate-wide leadership team meeting, I want to share not only with you all, but also our public, that our building level leaders are fired up and ready to go when it comes to the 2023-2024 school year. Throughout the course of our welcome back meeting, and administrators coming in from summer recess, supercharged. They also have a particular glow about them this year that has not been the case in years past, per se. But one of the things that was highlighted throughout the course of the meeting several times over is the fact that of our goals and of what we've been charged with in creating a professional learning organization, we have stability, sustainability, and formal structures in place to continue to move this most important work. And while we highlighted successes, we also acknowledged areas that we will continue to improve upon, especially in along the lines of student achievement. After having met, and we will take action on the item later in the meeting, but the last time we had work session 2 weeks ago, we had then Chief Tholes visit the podium to share the due diligence that he and so many have exercised to bring forth the Richmond Community Schools Police Department. And after having been welcomed into the County Commissioner's chambers earlier this morning, we had even that much more success and joyous news from our county commissioners and support agencies here locally. And so that is a major highlight as we continue to move down the road of establishing and providing some of the same safety and security, high quality standards that we've had in the past. And then finally, Mrs. Hazelbaker briefly addressed the EES vendor, Equitable Education Solutions and Analytics vendor. You all have had a chance to see, and our community will soon see the final draft and copy of one of our 5 promotional videos that part of the marketing plan and telling our own story as we've been discussing for some time. The video will be released here in the next few days, but the vendor has been a great partner thus far in highlighting and being able to extract positive data academically, but also the arm that they have with the marketing is going to allow us to continue again to not only share our story, but also highlight the wonderful things to continue to occur. So with that, I'm now going to ask, and actually she is not with us this evening. We wish Mrs. Bolzer all the best. She has a small cold and could not join us this evening, but she definitely wants everyone to know that she's on the mend and will be back in due time. But from her department, in short, unlike this time last year, and as we have been reporting to our Board of Governance, from a human resources standpoint, we're in such a better place this summer and at this juncture than we were this time last year. And that was also made prevalent and highlighted yesterday with our building level leaders who have been working throughout the course of the summer to fill vacancies, and we still have surplus of educators that want to come in and serve in Richmond Community Schools.
So-
And that is a huge, huge plus.
In the media this week made a big to-do about 75 jobs still open here. Now, am I correct in those are jobs that a lot of times go unfilled anyway?
Those particular jobs that were referenced, the majority of those positions were classified positions such as 7th grade girls soccer coach, 6th grade after school, extracurricular sponsor, not certified classroom teachers. Our classroom teachers, we have one of the highest retention rates in some time.
Yeah, so to say we have 75 open positions is pretty irresponsible to say, because it's kind of misleading saying we have 75 teaching positions. So it's more just a lot of times jobs don't get filled until a month before or something like that, or constantly get renewed every year, things of that nature.
Correct, sir. Certified teaching positions,
Right.
classroom teachers, we are as solid and will continue to remain solid as we have ever been. And we have, as I mentioned, a surplus of classroom teachers that want to come and serve in Richmond Community Schools. Of the supplemental positions that you're referencing, many of them are classified positions. And yes, all corporations and school districts within the county, state, and around the country always have such positions available. So yes, there are, to your point, ways to interpret particular reports, but if it would be further from the truth to believe that we are in dire need of classroom teachers. We have an amazing faculty and staff that has committed to return to serve in RCS. And while I highlighted the administrative sustainability, the classroom teaching sustainability and retention has been phenomenal throughout the course of this summer recess. But yes, sir, yeah, those are positions such as coaches, after school sponsorship.
Well, Jamie had mentioned a couple meetings ago that we were at like a 97, 95% retention rate on teachers.
Yes, sir.
And so are we still above the 90% on that?
Yes, sir. We are, as was previously reported, we are in a very secure position. What I will say is that the actions that you all, as a Board of Governors, have taken, the hard work that our central office team, Mrs. Bowles' office, Mrs. Scout, our building leaders, the collective effort of our professional learning organization has put us in position and put our classroom teachers in a assuring position to come back and serve our students like never before.
I think we have less than 5 teaching openings as of a couple days ago, not filled.
So less than 5 teaching
Which in the
vacancies.
past has been a lot more
We
than
had
that.
5 in a
couple
building
weeks before school.
last year.
Yes.
And there were multiple applicants for almost all 5 of those positions.
Okay. Great.
In the queue to potentially be interviewed to fill those vacancies. Whereas comparison, last year at
That's
this
a
time,
much better position we've been in the past several years. So,
without a doubt.
okay.
Without a
I just
doubt.
wanted to clarify that just because it was kind of misleading to hear that. So,
That was, like I said, per interpretation, but no. Our
Gotcha.
classroom teachers are coming back. Our students can count on many of those, almost all of the same faces they've seen in the past, coming back to serve themselves. So,
thank you.
with that being said, I'm going to turn to our Chief of Elementary Education, Mr. Brent Baker, for the next highlight happening. Baker.
All right, well, good evening. It's been a pleasure to work with this fella, Mr. Fowler. So far, he's been a great addition to our team.
So far.
So far. Yep. So, the jury's still out.
The night is young.
With that being said, we are just over a week before our students return to our buildings. The building principals are back in their buildings and finishing up hiring a small number of staff members for this school year. We are ready to have our students in our buildings and also prepared to address student attendance issues as they arise. And we've also made significant progress with Richmond Community Schools Police Department in regard to officer supplies needed for day one with students. And we're just looking forward to an outstanding school year.
Thank you.
Questions? We now will move to without further ado, Chief of Secondary Education, Mr. Mark Fowler.
I feel like I have to say that it's fun working with Brent.
No. I told him no shirt and tie tonight.
Yeah, so before I get into mine really quickly, I would just like to say, it was the first time opportunity for me to meet a lot of the building leaders. I, along with Dr. Wright, it was just really encouraging to hear one by one, each of them say how different this year felt than last year, in terms of staffing, in terms of momentum, and just how they felt about their teams moving forward. So for me, as someone new, that was really, really encouraging to hear that principal by principal, building by building, they just said, man, this feels so different than last year. So that was really, really encouraging to me. I had the opportunity to meet with each and every secondary principal and their team. That's been wonderful. I'm very relational that way, and so being able to sit down with them and talk with them about, hey, where do you want to go? How do we get there? And then how can we support you in that has been a wonderful opportunity for me. The other thing I would say that I think should be said out here is more than one time, a leader said they are so thankful for the support from the central office and this board of trustees in making strides and helping them to be successful at their sites. And that was something that came up over and over. It's just how thankful they are for that support, which was also really encouraging to me. And the last thing I would say is on the highlights and happenings is I think every one of the secondary buildings is ready for students. We have some projects going on. Karen's probably going to talk about that at some point. She and I have been on site making sure that those buildings are going to be ready for kids, also ready for staff, so that we can be ready to go. Karen's done a wonderful job with that. The last thing I would just say is this is an amazing central office. I've never been in a place where I felt more welcomed, more supported, and with a board of trustees who's been as encouraging and kind and welcoming. So I just want to say thank you for that. As you can imagine, education in California, that language is much different than the language here, so I feel like I'm acquiring a new language in some ways, but just being in this environment has been amazing. So I just want to say thank you, and feel like we're ready for kids.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again. It's been a long, long time.
I was telling someone earlier when I saw Mr. Stevens, the last time I saw him, he was taking me to the basket in a YMCA pickup game, treating me like, the little 12-year-old kid that I was, and was taking a lot of pleasure and schooling me.
You know that really comes out sounding bad that I was taking advantage of a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah. He was a better basketball player than me, is what I mean.
And on the more serious, I think on the reports, I'd follow more Brent's lead than Dr. Wright's. We had how it was done today.
Oh, okay.
The brevity was just on point.
Okay.
And where the earlier ones were a little lengthy in tone, but sorry, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate that.
We'll continue to improve upon that, Mr. Fowler.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll find that Mr. Weber, he appreciates brevity. And I'm working on it.
I thought I was under my 3 minutes, but maybe.
Well, you were fine.
You
started in the hole.
Okay, I started in the hole. That's right.
Getting back on track.
Yeah, negative.
We'll now move to, on that note, we'll now move to our Chief of Exceptional Education. This is Elizabeth Markworth.
All right, no pressure on brevity, but I do want to echo that it's been great to have Mr. Fowler join our team. So prayers for me as I have to deal with these two on a daily basis. No, just kidding. But the Exceptional Ed Department is just in full swing getting ready for the beginning of the school year, and that's just a lot of collaboration with our building level secretaries and principals, making sure that as we get new students to the district, all the paperwork for our exceptional learners gets to the buildings and that enrollment process is smooth. The next thing is on the onboarding of our new presence learning virtual speech therapist. That's in full swing to ensure that our services are ready to begin the week of August 7th. Our department is also organizing several training sessions that are going on for administrators, teachers, and paraprofessionals in the next coming week. So the planning is in full swing there. And another piece of my department is grant season is in full swings in that area. So that's a process of the planning, the documentation, and reporting to make sure we're in compliance with all aspects. So that's what's going on in our department.
Thank you, Mr. Markworth. Questions? Moving right down the dais here, Chief of Operations, Mr. Scout, please share with us your highlights and that?
Sure. So I will try to be brief, but I feel like it's only right to kind of fill you in on where we're at as we near the start of the school year. So it has been a whirlwind of a month for me and the team at Werner. So as we have really moved into just knocking some things out and really trying to knock it out of the park per se. So I cannot stress the thank you enough to all of the team at Werner. They have just jumped right in. They have been able to find the answers to the things that they may not have known about, that I did not know about, or that we did not know about. And they've really tackled getting the district back into a place where we can work with the projects going on and get us ahead for the start of the school year. So with that being said, you will notice quite a bit just in the last couple weeks out in the buildings or even out in the parking lots happening. I have to say kudos, the guys have been working out on pavement the last 2 days, how to stay severe, and they are doing some paving. So it has made a tremendous difference out in the parking lots, and we'll continue to do that, but we are nearing the finish line on that for now. We have also been working at Dennis and at the high school on projects, both of which are on schedule, and we will have some really wonderful floors next week, all waxed and ready to go. We will have a little bit of work to do, and it was known that it was going to push a little bit of that, the timing of that. And so just due to the flood, there was an area of the high school where the ceiling had to be repaired, and that took a little bit longer and more work than was expected. So it has been a little bit of a delay on a small section that we will finish over Christmas break, but we knew that might be tight. And so that they've been wonderful as far as the ceiling company keeping us in the know, making sure we understood where they were and what was going on. The flooring company has stepped up this week, and we have seen a tremendous difference. We have been working very hard to be very clear about expectations and deadlines. So this week we've seen some tremendous progress. The one thing is that prior to the meeting, just prior, we have sent out notifications that there is to be no one in the halls on the floors Friday through the weekend and Monday. So it is vital that no one be in the halls at this time, as they'll finish the last sealing and the waxing that needs to be done in order for that to have true movement next week. And any change to that will really impact the schedule. So we've communicated that to the building as well as to administrators, making sure that they know, making sure they're able to communicate with their staff, to custodial staff. And then we'll be working next week at high school to get the rest of the classrooms cleaned, ready to go. The advisement center looks amazing. So we did, while we were having to work on the floor, we did a new paint job that we brought it back to some of the older aesthetics, as well as coordinating with McGuire. And so it really looks great. I am thrilled with the way that it looks. We've got a little bit that just my OCD wants fixed, and so we'll be working on that. It is nothing that needs to be done right now, nor is it anything that could have been done right now because we needed to get the walls and the plaster and the flooring down. But that's super exciting for the building. I think that the students will see it, the staff should feel great about it, and everything will be good there. Mrs. Wolpe took the opportunity to order new furniture for the area as well, so it's going to look really great. And then Dennis, we are on that very tight schedule, but it is happening. And so they will move into the tunnels beginning the 3rd and the 4th. So they won't see people there, but the work will continue. And then both projects will wrap shortly thereafter. There's a little bit more to do in the tunnels that Dennis will kind of have some time. We're waiting on some equipment to come in September, and then we'll finish that first part of that in October during fall break. So the mechanical systems at the high school are the same way. They'll wrap in fall break. That is what we had expected because we are waiting on equipment, and that was something that no one could have anticipated at the time that the bids were sent. But it is on the schedule that we had, unfortunately, known from the start. So some progress, some things that we're seeing now that look really great, and it's super exciting when the kids get back. So just keep them busy there, as well as hiring. So we've been in interviews all day, every day this week for the most part, and we are currently working on custodians. So we are now fully hired at the maintenance building. We have replaced every open position that has been there since October this month. So starting Monday, we will be fully staffed, and that is a big, huge thing and a positive thing at that building, as well as we continue to work on custodians. So if you know anybody that would like a custodial position, we do have some available, and we are eager to get those hired. So that's kind of what's going on. Sorry, I told you it was more than 3 minutes.
Well, but there's a handful of things that over the summer we know are going on. But such news received a celebratory round of applause when you referenced that in our maintenance department we were fully staffed. And so that's it's been something that also questions? Okay. With that, I now am going to ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our Communications and Marketing Coordinator, rejoin us for her highlight and happy.
I went to St. Louis. I went to a conference. It was amazing. So it was the National School Public Relations Association conference. So people who do my job all over the country. So it was absolutely amazing. It was interesting to meet other people who are one team people as far as a single person in a department, and then also to meet the ones that have 10 people, and you're like, oh my gosh. But just some of the highlights that we had was help with enrollment marketing, some school crisis communications, how to keep parents engaged, how to communicate with your superintendent and your school board president, DEI connection to some diversity, equity, and inclusion information, and also attendance awareness. Those are just a couple of the items. But if you've been on our website or Parent Square social media, you'll see also just pushing a lot of information out to parents. Also, we're taking in a lot of information from parents, questions, concerns, getting a lot of tours also from new families coming into the district. So those are always some great highlights that are happening anyway. So anybody have any questions? I'd love to go again.
Thank you, Mrs. Hazelbaker.
Well done. All right. Moving forward, we are at item 6, consent items.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I come before you for approval of consent items 6.01 through 6.05 and the Human Resources Addendum as presented.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Member Zaleski, second by Member Stevens. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Walton, if you could just briefly read the subject matter of each agenda item number. The open door law does not allow you to just vote on agenda item number alone without.
Consent items are approval of minutes, human resources, accounts payable, monthly financial report, and transfers.
Thank you.
And the human resources addendum.
And the addendum to the human resources.
Sir.
Sorry, thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes 6-0.
No, I'll abstain from that.
Gotcha. Good call.
So with that being said, Vice President Walton, trustees, I apologize, but if I could just still just a few more minutes to highlight that with your latest approval of the Human Resource Report and addendum, we now are going to be welcoming Mr. Stacy Moss back into our central office leadership frame. Mr. Moss will be coming back in to serve in our Human Resources office where he has some familiarity and experience, and we are so excited to receive Mr. Moss back at our central level, as well as Mrs. Bolger again not being present, but she is so looking forward to working alongside and having such supports as she transitions into the role that she just most recently was reassigned to. So,
Also, moving forward, we will be starting the search for a replacement on the school board. So, Mr. Mobbs, you currently fill an at-large position, correct?
Yes.
So therefore, it will be open to anyone within city limits, or I'm sorry, school district of Richmond Community Schools, with no restrictions as far as District 1, 2, or 3, as long as they have lived in their residence for at least 1 year.
In the district for.
Or within the district for 1 year, sorry.
They could have moved as long as they.
Gotcha, I was thinking districts again.
No, you're right, if it was.
Correct.
Geographic
requirement as well.
Age of 21, correct?
Age 21, no requirement that they be a property owner or anything of that nature.
And is there any, didn't you say something about felonies or something like that?
Well, there's some disqualification factors that could be relevant in a given instance. Cannot have a felony conviction that remains on the record unexpunged, unreversed, what have you, since that disqualifies office holding, not just in school boards basis. Obviously, as Mr. Mobbs is going to have to deal with, can be employed by the same corporation for whom
You cannot be an employee of Richmond Community Schools. Okay. So, if anybody knows anybody that might be interested, or anybody listening at home might be interested, more information will be coming out here soon. So.
And I would just respectfully ask the board to take a look at the letter. I know you just got it today, some of you probably haven't even opened it yet. Yeah, it's kind of a rehash of 4 or 5 I've done in the last, whatever. But it does identify some issues you might not be totally thinking about that should be.
All right, thank you, sir. And also, the record should show a vote of 5-0 with 1 abstaining. All right, next is action items.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I come before you this evening for approval of action item 7.01, personnel hiring and background checks. Pursuant to Indiana Code 20-26-5-11.2, which became effective July 1st of this calendar year, I ask that you approve the hiring of employee number 49565 as presented.
Motion for approval.
Motion by member Zaleski,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Mobbs. Any comments or questions?
I would just like to share, prior to comments and questions, pursuant to the new Indiana Code that just went into effect as I read earlier this month, July 1. This employee has passed all of the same background checks as all other employees prior to July 1. This is just a legislative measure that is now put in place for school boards throughout our state, just as another informative measure prior to particular votes being taken. This particular employee has passed all the necessary background checks as any other employee.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up, 7.02 donations.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I come before you for request of approval of item 7.02 donations as presented.
I move we approve action item 7.0 donations.
Motion by Mr. Brunton, second by Mr. Stevens. Comments or questions?
As always, thank you.
Always thank you. There's some sizable donations by individuals and other groups. That's always humble.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Prior to, and I'll just ask whoever, the names on the first donation for RHS Athletics, are those proper? Are those correct? I didn't want to make an assumption. I just want to make sure that.
So.
Okay.
Great question. I will find
Their
out.
son runs tracks.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to make sure.
At first, yeah.
Okay.
I'll find out that if there needs to be an adjustment.
He would know, he would know.
I mean, I don't know that, I mean, I believe it's
Yes, I
correct.
believe it's correct.
And I mean, if it's not correct, then we can always we can make new, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Vote passes 6-0. 7.03, policy 3442, teacher appreciation grant, annual approval.
Vice President Walden, trustees, I come before you yet again for request for approval of action item 7.03 as presented. This is the annual teacher appreciation grant that is customary prior to the start of school.
Mr. Vice President, I move to approve 7.03 policy 3442, the teacher appreciation grant, the annual approval as submitted.
Motion by member Stevens,
I'll second.
second by member Mops. Any comments or questions?
I have a question. I know that the adjunct teachers aren't part of this policy. I think it would make sense for us to figure out a way to appreciate our adjunct faculty as well. I'm not sure that has to be through this policy, and I don't know what our number is, but I'm appreciative of those teachers in the classroom as much as I am of any other teacher in the classroom. And I think to separate them out seems a little unfair, but I understand that there's a bigger pond, and so, but I would, I guess, challenge administration to see if there's something we could do maybe in another path.
And I don't want to steal any of her thunder, but I believe Mrs. Scalf may be able to speak to the concern, because yes, as you referenced, we definitely want to highlight and pay homage to those who serve.
Right, so the policy that this actually refers to and is required by is, as you say, for certified teachers only. The portion of that would be adjunct, as well as it truly is just the definition by law of a teacher. So in the past, it has excluded some other groups as well that are technically teachers. And the corporation has tended toward honoring them as the teaching group. So I think that at the time in which we receive information on the grant, when it comes through, it would be appropriate at that time for the board to make a decision as to the adjunct, and then that way everything is done appropriately at that time. We usually do not hear about numbers or the grant itself in finality until November, so that then we know what to expect when it's released in early December. So I definitely think that that's something we can consider at that time, and it's something that we can plan for if that's the way that the board would like to go.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion by member Stevens and a second by Mr. Mops. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up is 7.04, underwriter placement agent engagement letter.
Vice President Walden, trustees, I come before you for approval of action item 7.04, the attached underwriter placement agent engagement letter relating to potential municipal securities transactions for Richmond Community Schools is submitted for your consideration and approval. The engagement will allow discussion related to a potential issue of municipal securities related to district-wide renovations and improvements to be identified by a facility study. This will allow for the development of a strategic financial plan to provide a clear roadmap for managing our resources and achieving goals for sustainability and the long-term long-term success of RCS as presented.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Zaleski with the motion and Ms. Bratton with the second. Any comments or questions?
So is this something new?
since 2019. It's basically a disclosure that the Securities and Exchange Commission has required, and it basically distinguishes between a financial advisor and a potential underwriter placement agent as to the fiduciary duty that one owes to the school corporation, but not the other. So it's very, very preliminary. There's no, you're not bound to use exclusively Stifle, although I will say that our recent experience with them, and Karen back me up, has been, they're top notch, they do a great job, but it is required. It's more one of the boxes that they're checking off as opposed to us.
Yeah, well, the last time that we had to do a letter like this was when we were talking about the 2021 bonds. So this isn't saying that we're taking out any bonding, it's just saying that, this provides the ability for them to work with us on analysis and information. So they do have to have that to continue that process. So that's really all this is right now. It's not committing one way or another as to anything financial.
If she were
beyond
here,
that.
in short, I think if she were here, she'd be Mrs. Bolzer. She would share as it's referencing the executive content that this is going to allow for she as she transition into the financial office to gain that much more of a scope as she and we all are preparing such a strategic financial plan for you all and for our corporation.
So there's no contractor cost. I mean, we're not paying for services at this point, correct?
I beg your pardon?
We're not paying for services
No.
at this point.
There are no charges. If you were to decide you wanted to go with a different underwriter on a given matter, this is just basically to conduct a feasibility and look at the situation, debt rolling off, debt, needs, what have you. Again, like I say, it's a box they're checking off, not really significant from our point of view.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second, so all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. 7.05, food service pricing for 2023 and 2024.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I ask that Chief of Operations, Mrs. Scott, join us for approval. Action item 7.05, Mrs. Scott.
Good evening. The Indiana Department of Education requires that our pricing for adult meals and a la carte items be in alignment with the USDA as well as the IDOE school meal provisions. Tonight for your approval are the pricing lists based on these requirements by the USDA and IDOE. What I will note is that for the most part, the largest increase is for the full lunch a la carte, which is where a student or an adult could get a lunch in addition to the student lunch that they are already provided free. So we are going to continue the community eligibility provision, which means that every student in Richmond Community Schools receives a free breakfast and a free lunch. But this is when they want to purchase in addition to that. So tonight, it is my recommendation that we approve the prices for a la carte items for the 2023 school year as they've been presented.
I move to approve 7.05, the food services pricing for 2023, 2024.
Motion by Mr. Stevens,
Second.
second by Mr. Weber. Comments or questions? I just want to say it's a great deal again for us to be able to provide free breakfast and lunch to every one of our kids. It's an amazing opportunity, and tag that on top of free book fees. It's looking good for our constituents this year, our students.
If I can piggyback on that, I heard something from a parent recently who's had 5 kids go through Richmond Community Schools over the last 20-some years. She talked about stigmas and in the fact that we're doing this for all students, regardless of where they come from. It eliminates that stigma that has been long-standing in public education that, to an extent, to a form of bullying that came out as a result of it, because you had those who were able to purchase, those who were not able to purchase, those who got free and reduced lunches or something, and those who had to pay for it. And in the fact that we're able to do this now, it's not only commendable, but it's also exceptional in the fact that now every student is equal in their opportunities in that sense. And this should not go unnoticed, because there are some people out there who are really paying close attention to it. So,
All right.
And then I just wonder, the a la carte items, like, are those available for just high school? I'm not a big fan of like energy drinks, and I noticed there's a
so I will
Start Mountain Dew on
Yeah,
there.
that's just at high school. It is a sugar-free option. And so, having had a student that gets them every morning, I will just say that I'm not a super fan either, but they sell like hotcakes. So, so not every item is available at every building.
Okay.
The high school has a lot more options than most of the other schools. Most of the other schools, it's extremely limited, and they do not have any of the soft drink like options at all, even at the middle schools. So, yeah.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of 7.05, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up is 7.06, request to advertise Hibbert Imagination Lab and demolition bid.
And Vice
We took
President
that off.
Walden and trustees, we have since redacted and retracted from that to an action item. That's something that will come back before you vote. Everything.
So are all those?
7.06 will be the 2023-2024 Fire and Rescue Course MOU. And I ask that Chief of Operations, Mrs. Karen Scout, join us for the request for approval. Mrs. Scout.
So tonight before you is the memorandum of understanding between the City of Richmond Fire Department and Richmond Community Schools for the fire and rescue and EMS courses at Richmond High School. The fee associated with the program has been increased this year. However, that is funded through the per student tuition amount that we receive through the state funding. So it will be covered, even though it is a little bit more, and that is just due to associated increases in costs and supplies and textbooks and testing for that program. This is an excellent program. For the first time this year, the fire department was able to actually hire one of our seniors straight in, so they did not have anything else to finish when they were done with graduation, and that is really exciting for the fire department because they are actually making significant impact in their hiring
They just
with this program.
reduced the age limit to 18, correct?
We did not.
No.
I think the
Didn't
state.
the city or the state?
yes.
I think
do
the
that?
state changed that. Yes,
Okay.
so that will help them even more in the future. This program has been one of our most interesting in that students are constantly eager to enroll, and so if it doesn't have a wait list, it usually does, and so it's really exciting program for the kids at RHS and our community. We do receive transfer tuition often for students that are from other schools that participate in this program. So it is special and unique to RHS, and we should celebrate it. I know that the city of Richmond does, and so we would really love to continue the program for the 2023-2024 school year. So the memorandum of understanding is recommended for approval tonight.
We have a motion?
I move we approve action item 7.06.
Motion by member Brun.
Say you are, that's right.
I'll second.
Brevity.
Had that timer yet. All right, second by Mr. Mops.
3 minutes.
Any comments or questions? Would you like to restate?
No,
All right.
Rough crowd.
All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next is 7.07, latchkey agreement with YMCA.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I come before you for approval. action item 7.07. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees approve the latchkey agreement between Richmond Community Schools and the YMCA as presented for the 2023-2024 school year. Indiana Code 20-5-2-1.5 requires school corporations to provide or contract for an after-school program for students. This program has been around for some time. We come before you just for approval to continue such a great partnership with our local YMCA and the families that take advantage of this program.
I'll make a motion that we approve 7.07 latchkey agreement with YMCA.
Motion by Mr. Mopes,
Second.
second by Mr. Stevens. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up is 7.08, the 2023-2024 mental health agreement with Centerstone.
Vice President Walton, trustees, I ask that Mr. Billy Wright, our Director of Student Support, join us here at the podium for request of approval of action item 7.08. Mr. Wright.
Good evening. I come before you regarding action item 7.08, mental health agreement with Centerstone. I ask that you refer to the attached agreement for services with Centerstone for the 2023-2024 school year for your consideration and for your approval. Centerstone provides a wide range of mental health support for students of RCS. In addition, Centerstone will provide 7 master level therapists, 18 family support specialists that will be housed throughout RCS. These services will provide continued resources in our elementaries, our intermediate, and high school levels. Their services and costs are identical to the 2022-2023 agreement and addendum. It's my recommendation that the board approve the MOU for Centerstone as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Do I have a motion?
All right, so I move to approve 7.08, the 2023-2024 mental health agreement with Centerstone as presented.
Motion by Member Stevens,
Second.
second by Mr. Weber. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up is 7.09, 2023-2024 CIS MOU.
Vice President Walton and trustees, I ask again that Mr. Wright, Director of Student Support, come before us for approval, action item 7.09. Mr. Wright.
I come before you, action item 7.9, communities and schools. Please refer to the attached agreement for services with communities and schools for the 2023-2024 school year. Communities and schools provide students with additional services and resources that address both academic and non-academic needs. Each school will have a site coordinator that serves as the point of contact. These services provide continued resources at the elementary, intermediate, and high school levels. The services and costs are identical to the 2022-2023 agreement and addendum. It's my recommendation that the board approve the MOU communities and schools as presented.
I move that we approve the 2023-2024 communities and schools MOU.
Second.
Motion by Member Mopes, second by Member Zaleski. Any comments or questions?
Vice President Walton, trustees, I noticed that we do have a representative from communities and schools with us. And prior to the action and motion, is there anything that you would like to share with regard to your continued service, your outfit's community continued service, and just your expectations for this upcoming year?
We are thrilled to be able to fill the vacant positions that were available. I'm working closely with the principals, Mr. Jones being one, so I appreciate you. The staff at RCS has been wonderful in welcoming new faces as they come. But we are thrilled for the school year, so I'm ready to service kids again.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up is 7.10, the 23-24 RHS Student Handbook.
Vice President Walton, trustees, for action item 7.10, I ask that Chief of Secondary Education, Mr. Mark Fowler, join us for approval of the action item. Mr. Fowler.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wright. Vice President Walton, trustees. So what you have before you is the recommended approval for the Richmond High School Handbook as presented for the 23-24 school year. There were 2 revisions. They were in red. I do want to apologize for the tardiness in uploading the actual document. The 2 revisions had to do with the class of 2027 and 1 valedictorian. And the second revision was the omission of some language related to cell phone use in the classroom.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve 7.10, the 2023-2024 RHS Student Handbook as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Mopes. Any comments or questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Weber.
I guess I don't quite understand the omission piece. It seems like it removes the discretion of the instructor for cell phone use.
So I worked very closely actually for quite some time with the building level leaders specifically on this. And so one of the reasons for this is that every student has a device. And so there are interactive activities that students would participate in with a teacher, a Kahoot or an Edu protocol, where before every student had a device, you would actually have to get out your phone and you'd have to participate in that educational activity with your cell phone. Well, now that every student has a device, there's not a need for that. Any educational activity that would take place in a classroom, they can do with their device. So what we agreed upon as the site leadership team and the central offices, we're going to take this hard stand to try and curb some students who would utilize that as an opportunity instead of participating in a classroom activity to get on whatever social media that they might have. And they were all in favor of this in terms of creating a classroom environment that's conducive to instruction.
This is also in accordance to the student code of conduct handbook and policies that were passed at one of our most recent board meetings. One of the things that we've discussed coming into 23-24 school year is an emphasis on a high turnaround effort with student absenteeism and student behavior. Those are 2 areas that we are going to be, as our leadership team referenced yesterday, pinpointing to make sure that our students are showing up, showing out, and behaving along the way.
So if we're going to be stricter with phones, I guess I mean, like Mr. Baker has a smartwatch. I mean, that's basically a phone on your wrist. We're not going to ask people to not wear their watch, correct?
I think in such a situation, and as is alluded to and as was discussed, such a device on one's wrist within the learning environment, within that classroom setting, it should not be accessed in order to become a distraction to the learning environment whatsoever. To Mr. Fowler's point, and what's been acknowledged, I think it also is to be commended amongst this board and boards before you that have allowed our students to take advantage of the one-to-one setting that we have created, that you all have created with approval of such resources. So to that specific matter, as well as others, we are and have listened to our classroom educators who have stated that mobile devices and such cellular equipment is taken away from the learning environment and instructional best practices.
I mean, I guess I would be, I think prohibition is the wrong way to go. I would look for, I'm willing to try, but rather than say no smart devices, it seems like we live in an age where that's part of life now.
But I think,
classroom.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so I think maybe there'd be a solution down the road that kind of is more balanced, if you will, than just saying no. Plus we have a number of kids that, they have a diabetic, you know, it's out of, I mean, that's how they are
Correct,
tracked.
yeah.
And so again, I'm supportive of the effort, and I think it's worth trying. But I also think I would not want to double down on it, and if it does not work as we anticipate, I would be open to considering other options.
And then to Mr. Weber's point, we are always, and I appreciate you saying that, because we are always reviewing, reflecting, and making necessary revisions when appropriate. And I'm not sure Mr. Fowler was going to allude to, and just for clarification, students will have access to their mobile devices while they are passing from one period to the other, as well as during the lunch cycle session. However, once students get into those classrooms, that's where we need them to be.
Very similar to an occupation where you can check your phone on breaks and things of that nature. One of the biggest problems, I've been out of the classroom 2 years now, but one of the biggest problems I had with it was not student-to-student conversations, but it was actually parent-to-student conversations. And parents were very not understanding when they couldn't get a hold of their child. So, you know, it does take a village to raise a child, and one thing we need to put out there is with this effort is we hope to have some understanding from parents, and hopefully they help and understand if a student doesn't reply back instantly, that, you know, they'll be checking their phone in passing period, they'll be checking it at lunch. But to your point, where it's part of society now, it's just an instantaneous, you know, feedback on everything we get, to where, you know, right now, if I text my daughter, I expect her to text me back right now, but I will say I was pretty good about not texting her during the school day, just because of that. But so I mean, just as I'm sitting here in that parent role, I'm going to have a freshman in high school and a fifth grader, and it's going to be hard to be patient to hear back from them. I'm talking to myself, kind of.
No, and to assure you and to assure all of our parents, and as we only knew while we were students, we still have the same protocols and the same options and the same accessibility available to our parental community. And so if they have such need to contact students throughout the course of the day, there are, as I mentioned, such resources, such protocols and formalities. But to your point, and we are not immune to it here in Richmond Community Schools, talking with superintendents from around the county, around the state, and around the country. To Mr. Weber's point, it has become part of the zeitgeist in today's society. However, we also are hearing from across the country, around the state and the county, here locally, that students, unfortunately, and as you mentioned, parents, are not exercising the type of behaviors that allow our teachers to exercise their very utmost.
To Member Weber's point about hardlining, I'm sure we're going to make exceptions to where if something happens, if someone comes in and says, "Hey, my mom's having surgery right now, I need to be able to, can I keep my phone out?" I mean, there's going to be exceptions to stuff. But
If I can offer a suggestion, is should this pass with the red lines at this point, if we could maybe look immediately to a waiver that could be created for like medical reasons or something like that, so that a student who has, for those very purposes, the need for an electronic device, you know, monitoring medical behavior or something family related for medical purposes, and that's something that we could maybe have them fill out from a medical perspective, have it on file and everything else, serve as a waiver. Keep this in place, but you know, the exceptions are the waivers for those purposes.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that, but at one point, we got to trust our professionals who we hire to have some common sense variations to it, to where, you know, we trust our teachers, we trust our support staff, we trust our administrators. I mean, put our faith in them to use their head, and if there's an exception that needs to be done, let them have an exception.
The child's on a 504 medical plan.
504
Right,
is gonna be
right.
I mean, it's already gonna be in the
at one point,
policy. It'll be in Power School, the teacher will see it
Absolutely.
right away.
So,
it's educated.
just, I mean, there's some professional courtesy we gotta extend to our staff. I mean, they're the ones who get it done every day, those trustees.
Trustee Weber, if I could just answer your question a little bit initially. So the part of the making sure that this was not just like this all of a sudden hard and fast, like it, that's why we kept the language of at lunch and in between classes, because to your point, and I agree with you, and Dr. Wright and I and Mr. Baker, we talked about that today with the administration of this is going to be a change, right? And so we wanted to make sure that we started it in a classroom and that we could do that well to see if we wanted to go outside of that, if that makes sense. So that when you walk into that classroom, you know this is a learning environment. In between classes, yeah, check your phone. At lunch, check your phone. Because we wanted parents to have that peace of mind and the kids to have that peace of mind as well, without just saying, no cell phones ever. This was our, let's start in the classroom.
I mean, it's interesting. My wife was at a conference this summer, and while all the people had their laptops, they provided an app to take notes during the conference. And she kind of scoffed, but ended up using that app because it was done so well and so seamless, it became part of the conference. So part of her as a being instructed, the phone was part of that process. Yeah. And obviously the app was well done. I mean, because she's, I don't know where she'd fall on the technical scale, but better than Dr. Wright, I guess.
One thing I would like to say that not having cell phones really equals it out though. Because if I'm in there with my, I don't even know what level of Apple we are now, and Dr. Wright has his Motorola flip phone, they're not equal. And so taking those away and putting everybody on the same device, I think, is a lot more equitable there. And I applaud that. I mean, I really do. And I stay within my 3 minutes.
He's got a razor. What are you talking about?
Wow. I mean, just the other day, I had my first Uber.
Flip phone went to rotor dial.
My first Uber delivered to me.
I do have a question about the wording, because the second bullet point, cell phones or electronics are to be turned off during class time. I mean, electronic is their netbook or their laptop. I mean, that's saying it's not worded, maybe it should say cell phones or personal electronics. But to me, that just says electronics are to be off during school time. That's their netbook we give them.
Or non-educational devices.
Yeah, we can absolutely amend that language. Part of the reason, for full disclosure, is I think their feeling was we already have a verbiage in the handbook about their devices in a separate space. So I think the feeling was because the heading was cell phone and other electronic devices. But we can absolutely amend that if it makes more sense to do that.
I have one other question, which pertains to the handbook somewhat, but we alluded on it a couple of weeks ago too, about dress code, trying to have be a point of emphasis. I should have emailed you some questions earlier on this, but I didn't. So I don't mean to throw this at you right here. If you would have taken Mr. Baker's advice and not worn a tie, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Rough crowd, Joe.
So, all joking aside, one thing we're trying to do is really emphasize the dress code this year, and that starts with, are we implementing that with staff? Are we doing that with students? I mean, I kind of want to, this is kind of morphing into more than we wanted to, and I kind of want to have this conversation because I want our staff to know what to expect. I want our students to know what to expect. Parents are school shopping right now. Past couple of years with COVID, we've been, laxed, and last year was kind of a transformation getting back to the normal, and now we're full bore normal. I mean, so what is normal?
Number one, Vice President Walton and Trustee, and I know that this was a topic of conversation in our previous gathering. For the 2023-2024 school year, we will be returning to our board approved policy when it comes to professional dress, grooming, and decor. And our annual welcome back correspondence will be going out later this week. Accompanying that correspondence, as we have done in past practice, we'll be sharing with our educators. As I had stood on the stage there in Civic Hall roughly 2 years ago and vowed to our faculty staff with the understanding that we had a historic pandemic still upon us, that such professional dress formal. I understood prior to my arrival there was laxing and grace that was extended. However, now as to your point, we have moved beyond the pandemic nature of things, returning back to professional performance and expectation as we move to the school.
I just want to make sure that the parents are aware. I mean, we're going to be, points of emphasis this year are the cell phones in the classrooms. So please be patient with if your student doesn't reply immediately. And, you know, dress code is going to be adhered to this year. So,
And attendance.
and attendance is the 3 points of emphasis we have.
And it's countywide. I'm not sure if you all have noticed or have seen the marketing campaign countywide. Because again, we're not immune to it here in Richmond. It's occurring all over our county, around the state, around the country. Student absenteeism is at all-time highs. And as a result of that's where we're going to lean on our parents and guardians to continue to partner with us to see to it that students are getting to school. And we have supports and resources to see to it that our students are before us.
Do I need to make a new motion to add the word personal before electronics on that second bullet?
We can do that.
Just a,
First and second.
You're talking about that second bullet.
Mr.
right?
Stevens, would you mind amending your motion to include the verbiage?
The second bullet under cell phone / electronic device usage would say cell phones or personal electronics are to be turned off during class time.
A simple yes would be.
Can you repeat back what I said here?
I can, or maybe it's simpler if I withdraw my motion and let you make the new motion.
Perfect.
Robert rule over here. I withdraw my motion.
Okay, I make the motion that we accept this student handbook as presented with one change, which is the second bulleted point will read, cell phones or personal electronics are to be turned off during class time.
You said it more eloquently than I ever could.
I just want to hear you try to say that.
I second the motion.
All right. The motion by member Brunton, second by member Stevens. Now, any more comments or questions? Thank you for the discussion, everyone, and all those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next up is 7.11, Honeycutt Consulting, speaker for August 4th, back to school kickoff.
Vice President Walden, trustees, I ask that Mr. Brent Baker, our Chief of Elementary Education, will join us for approval of action item 7.11. Mr. Baker.
We request that the Board of Trustees approve the contract with Honeycutt Consulting for August 4th. Kevin Honeycutt is a well-known and respected speaker in the world of education. Kevin will kick off our school year with an inspirational message for all RCS employees.
I move that we accept Honeycutt Consulting speaker for August 4th back to school.
Second.
Motion by member Mops, second by member Brunton. Any comments or questions?
I looked him up, but I'm excited to hear him. It looks like his name's Kevin, right? Kevin, I think he's spoken in almost all 50 states and is well received by some people.
I believe he told me he's opening up 13 school districts to start the year. He's flying from Texas. I'm picking him up at the airport and then dropping him back off, and he's flying to Denver.
Fantastic. Great.
Yes, Mr. Weber.
Yeah, he spoke here several years ago. Unless there's another Kevin Huntington, but he's really good. I will say, and I guess it's another charge administration. So last year, I forget the speaker, but he had the amaze and surprise, or the surprise and delight. And it seemed like we all left that conference pretty fired up, and then we didn't do anything with surprise and delight. I mean, occasionally you'd hear it, but you know, if Kevin has a message for us, it'd be nice if that kind of resonated through the year. I don't know if he offers any topic or if you direct him, but let's say if there's a theme to a speech, or maybe we help him with a theme. it'd be nice if that was something that we kind of carried through, and it's fairly late in the game, but activities for the year. And that's all I would add, because I think we sort of missed an opportunity last year with that, because that theme was so distinct. And we really didn't hear much about it after he left. But and like I say, I've heard Kevin speak before. I think I follow him on social media. He's a good guy, and I think he'll have a great message for us. And just if you have any thoughts, and if not, it's fine. But just I wanted to put that out there.
I know that Mr. Honeycutt will be spending time with our central office leadership after his presentation to our faculty and staff, and we're also going to work to put him in front of a few students as well. So yes, that is something that we're all going to be working to try to continue.
We have a motion by Member Mops and second by Member Broughton. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. And I don't want to jump the gun here, but Mr. Mops, if this was your last meeting, I would like to say congratulations on your service and thank you.
And Vice President Ward, prior to us paying homage to Mr. Mops, I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, and trustees, that we acknowledge resolution number 2023-05, a resolution authorizing the acceptance and purchase of publicly owned tangible personal property from the governmental body. I'm going to ask that.
This is 7.12.
This will be action item, official amendment to the agenda, action item 7.12, yes, sir. Okay. Resolution number 2023-05. I'm going to ask that Attorney Cross join us and share and shed light on the resolution prior to our respectful request of approval. Attorney Cross.
Yes, I think several of you, administrative staff, have been working with the implementation of the Richmond Community Schools Police Department, a list of equipment and needs, if you will, was prepared. And of course, the plan is to allow the 3 officers who had served as SROs to basically continue employment, but in a new capacity as officers of the now created Richmond Community Schools Police Department. There was requests submitted then to the Sheriff of Wayne County and to the County Commissioners. This morning, Dr. Wright and members of Zaleski presented a request for basically the 4 patrol cars, if you will, that would be acquired by the school corporation. And the Kevlar, or they may not be Kevlar, that's kind of like Kleenex aren't all tissues, or tissues aren't all Kleenex. But the body protective armor that was specially fitted for the 3 officers also to go with them. So this morning, the county commissioners authorized that, and this afternoon they adopted a resolution for the transfer and sale of 4 vehicles identified in the resolution they passed, excuse me, as well as the vest, for the total sum of $20,000 to be paid within 30 days of delivery of the vehicles. And it is required under the law that this body, as governing body of the recipient, acknowledge and execute a counterpart resolution indicating their willingness to accept those transfers under those conditions. So that's the purpose of it tonight. I would suggest if there's discussions, we have it, but before you take the vote, since this was not on the agenda, nor was it, I don't think, able to be put on board docs, that under the public law number 184 or whatever, you need to open this for public comment before taking final action at this meeting tonight.
So do we have our discussion first?
Yeah, I would think so, because since they really don't, it's hard to have public comment on something they really aren't too more familiar with than what I've just probably kind of obtusely described.
If I'm reading this right, we're getting 4 vehicles and the body armor for all of our SROs for $20,000.
And you're getting all of the equipment that the vehicles contain, with the exception of the computer and the radio communication devices that are basically, more unique to the needs of the Sheboygan County Sheriff's Department, which our police officers.
So
do not have
lights,
that.
sirens, partitions,
Full dress.
full dressed. Okay.
I don't know what they're equipped
Then
with,
we would have
there may or may not, I don't think there's any
We would have
screen.
additional
because
costs,
I don't think
either
any of
wrap
these.
one or any,
Yes, sir.
okay,
I don't think any of these are animal vehicles.
right.
Pardon?
I'm talking out loud. Trying to get my head around it myself, so,
Do we need a motion first before discussion?
sure.
Move for approval of resolution 2023-05.
Second.
Motion by member Zaleski, second by member Brunton. So, we have a continued conversation. Questions or comments?
I've had multiple conversations with commissioners over the last month, probably. The vehicles they could put in auction probably get $7,000 or $8,000 a vehicle, and that's after they take the lights, the sirens, the equipment off. So to be able to get 4 vehicles plus the vest for $20,000 is a fair show of support from the county.
And I think the county is going to remove the decals.
They're going to remove the decals
before they are presented to you, so that's one less thing you have to worry about.
I don't know where this lies. I know the county vehicles are heavily tinted.
Heavily what?
The windows are heavily tinted in many other vehicles. I would prefer our vehicles not have that total blacked out look, and so I would ask that they consider removing the tint from the vehicles. I don't know what legally that, what the preference is, but I don't think it's very friendly, if you will, for a school resource officer. Aaron?
There's a legal exception under Indiana law when it comes to tinted windows pertaining to law enforcement vehicles.
But doesn't mean you have to tint them.
Doesn't mean you have to, but there's a protection factor that comes with it. That's why so many of them have the tinted windows.
I think Chief Dawes would be in that conversation, because maybe he has a preference and a reason why.
Our sheriff's vehicles are extremely tinted. Like I wouldn't notice RPD. They're tinted fine.
There are no, well, we have the option individually whether we want to. My patrol car does not have tinted windows, and that's just by my choice. But a lot of them do. And again, it's for a number of reasons, but primarily it's for safety reasons, for the officer protection.
I think another thing, I would hope that our officers aren't in these vehicles very often. The majority of their time should be spent in the hallways of our schools. And so,
Just an image
keep it
you wanna
brief.
Project, and I just think regular tint windows more friendly.
It seems to bring about transparency.
I see what you did there.
You know, and I did, after I said that, I had to be taken a reality, John, with what you're saying. I mean, if one of the things, and I addressed this at the board meeting last month, and that is in regards to establishing a partnership, a relationship of trust and everything between officers and our students, our staff, and our families and everything else. Going to your point, John, I mean, if it's a vehicle that's windows are lightly tinted that you can still see inside, there's still a protection factor that goes with it. However, I can see your point in regards to the transparency, so that the parent, the student, can see the officer instead of him or her hiding behind the tinted window, but also
Even when the cars are sitting in the parking lot, it's all blacked out.
I look at it a little differently. If we've got an officer transporting a student somewhere, and
That's
they're
the
sitting in the
point.
back seat, and they pull up at a stoplight, and somebody pulls up next to them, and they see this kid sitting in the back seat. I mean, that
That's
could be
a good
very
point.
embarrassing, and
It's also a security thing. When the car's parked in the parking lot, it's a lot harder to see in and see what's in there.
True, yes, that's
Similar
true.
to what pharmacies will do.
With all due respect, I think this is a discussion it's worth having, but I don't think it has
It's
anything
not
to do with the
everything.
resolution per
Correct.
se, because the county is really trying to prioritize the work that they're gonna have to do to get the vehicles ready for us by the start of school, which, and the highway department supervisor, Mr. Sharp, indicated that he would put that at the top of his priority list, but it's still the proverbial gift horse. So I think certainly Mr. Thalls, Chief Thalls may have some input, and that's fine, but I really don't think it's anything that we need to deal with in this resolution per se.
Definitely don't want gratitude to go by the wayside here. It's,
Well, no, I
very
mean, that's
grateful.
not what I'm saying at all. I just, we've not had a ton of input on uniforms or really anything else for the police department. I don't know that we should or should not, but I haven't really had conversations.
To Attorney Cross's point, the mechanic at the county is going through the vehicles and doing the bumper to bumper check, so to speak. And they'll come to us having all the maintenance up to date and in good working order, and all of the current county decals will be removed.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor,
Wait,
state by
before
saying
we
aye.
vote, you need to open it up for public
All
comment.
right, thank you, sir. Thank you. Do we have any comment from the public in attendance today?
Yes. I totally agree with Mr. Mops on that, on his last point. And I know it's not the time to have this discussion, but I agree, because that'd be a social media nightmare, is that you got somebody getting transported and somebody pulls up and says, oh, hey, look at so-and-so's kid was in the back of the car, back of the supply car. It could get ugly. And in this world where social media rules pretty much everything, we don't want to lose that battle. So, this is my thoughts as a parent and principal. We won't ever have them at Charles, but it's good to know that.
Thank you, sir, for your unbiased comment. See, no other comments. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Vice President Waldman, trustees, I would just like to close with regard to the last passage of such resolution. Sincere gratitude has already been mentioned, but this really helps us continue to check those three boxes: personnel, resources, and local law enforcement and community support for up and coming department.
Good to mention by name the commissioners, Mr. Jeff Plaster, Ms. Mary Ann Butters, and Mr. Brad Dwinger for their support.
And the council supported it through their representation on the fleet management committee is the committee that the county has that basically controls fleet decisions. And they were supportive of the decision. And I think the original request may have said 5 cars. I think they said 4 right now. And then if you come back, if that need manifests itself, so they're not saying this is not a one and done situation, sort of thing straight.
Thank you, sir. All right. Preview of upcoming meetings and events.
Vice President Walden, trustees, we will be back in each other's presence on Wednesday, August 9th, 2 weeks from today, for another scheduled work session. During that work session, Chief of Elementary and Secondary Education, Mr. Brent Baker, Mr. Mark Fowler, along with Chief of Exceptional Education, Mrs. Markle, will be providing a brief report centered around student achievement, where we are, where we've been, where we are, where we're going, as well as another just follow-up update from Chief Thalls as to the status of our police department. And by then, we will have more than a week under our belt with our new police department. As for a bell ringing activity, before I bring Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker back to the podium to close with the bell ringer, I'd just like to again highlight the fact that coming back to a leadership team and only having one new face yesterday, that being our Chief Government Education, Mark Fowler. And I think this exemplifies the turnaround and the corner that we all are still edging around. Finally, and I'm not sure if Mrs. Hazelbaker is going to allude to the EES marketing video that will be released. I think everyone's going to
I
find
got
that.
an email from them today, so editing is still continuing, so I was hoping to have something today,
Yes.
but I have not.
We're confident by the end of the week we'll be able to get it out. And then as far as the surprise and delight, I'm not sure what Mrs. Hazelbaker is going to allude to, but to Mr. Weber's question, we, throughout the course of this past year, were celebrating surprise and delights at each building level, each building level leader. We're highlighting faculty that were surprising and delighting, and at each building level, they were able to acknowledge those. So we're going to continue that along with the new leadership from Honeycutt. Mrs. Hazelbaker.
Just some additional activities, of course, registrations tomorrow and Friday, so if you'd like to send a little apple or to our secretaries and flowers, that'd be wonderful. Also, Sunday is the ice cream social for our band, so it's over here at Live Field, so if you're in the area, I'm sure the band would love to have you there. Also, kindergarten boot camp, 31st to the 2nd. Meet the Teacher Night will be August 3rd, and then Band Day is August 4th. So I think Mr. Walton will be there most likely.
I won't be there.
That's it too.
If you haven't seen our band, they have put in some work this summer. They look really good. They finished 3rd at Jay County last week. Winchester is Friday. I think it's Saturday. Isn't it? It's either Friday or Saturday.
I have doubts on the 29th.
But yeah, Saturday. So, and I think this is the drum competition also, isn't it?
It is.
Where
yes.
they get featured. And last year our drumline won top of the state. They were pretty impressive. It's fun to sit in the stands and hear all the other parents from other bands. Every one of them's like, wow, their drums were amazing. Just it's
And they're still collecting the pennies. So if you have
1973 and 1987.
88.
88. Sorry, again, bad band.
Yeah, so we still have those pennies for 2023 pennies. So you have to look through your change drawers. They're still collecting them. All right, thank you.
I still have pennies for both, so.
By the way, just to let you know in advance, I will not be in attendance on the August 9th meeting. I will be speaking in Indianapolis that night to the state and regional hostage crisis negotiator conference.
Anything else for the betterment of the cause?
Mr. Moss, we sincerely appreciate your service amongst our board of governments for the past 7 months. As I already alluded to, we're so excited to have you back, part of our Central Office leadership team.
It's been fun. We need to have a lot of people apply for this vacancy. We really do. It's been fun. It really has. Enlightening.
Welcome home.
Do you get a plaque for listening to you?
No. I don't even like this.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, make sure you get the plaque.
Meeting adjourned.